it almost feels like there should be another gateway, and one would be, for me, it would be rage. It would almost be impossible to feel grief for what you're losing if, for example, you're a family of color and these horrible things are happening to your loved ones, or you're in California, you're on the West Coast, and you've just lost everything because your entire community has burned to the ground, or the climate change. I mean, we could go on. I don't want to get off track or get political,
Yeah.
but the fact is that the anger that these things are happening, and so many other people are belittling that loss, that, oh, whatever, just get over it. And I think you know what I'm talking about here.
Oh,
So how do you get past that and allow yourself to just feel your grief?
it's a great question, and quite honestly, anger tends to cover grief. So many times, anger is far more accessible and easier to reach for. It's to yell or to just and anger. I'm all for anger because I think anger is only exists because of some injustice. That's it. What happens is if we don't know how to, in some healthy way, express it, it then starts to attack us, our bodies, literally our beings, and that's not okay. So there has to be found some way to deal with it. But how to deal with it every day, there's got to be some concerted effort to not only getting through, but trying to some things I was going to say trying to make sense of, but quite honestly, some of this stuff just there is no making sense of it. There really isn't. But what's the quality of my life? That the only thing I can control. How can I bring a quality to my existence in the insanity that exists? Can I just slow down just enough to take personal inventory to to educate those around me, those who are willing to hear my voice, and because I think when we are educated, we all do better. How can I become even more vulnerable and intimate so that I am sharing what I'm experiencing and not armoring up, which is I spent my 20s and 30s in a lot of armor and angry, and that didn't change anything. So I'm going to have to try a different approach. And so that's what I'm committed to doing these days, is really taking personal inventory, affecting that which I can. And that which I cannot, I can adjust me as much as possible without losing my values.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can do.
Right.
And well, yeah, I find that mindfulness and being still and taking a walk, and then sometimes just grabbing a bat and beating the shit out of something, because all of the methods work at one time or another. But really just not being taken under by the insanity, because I can't give it that much of my life force energy.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. And in fact, this takes us back to something you said a few minutes ago, where you were saying some people don't allow themselves to grieve because, well, my problem isn't anywhere near as bad as what some other people are truly suffering for. So they feel guilt about their own grief. How would you recommend somebody who feels that way about their own grief? How can they work through that?
Deep compassion, really deep compassion for oneself. Their feelings matter too. Yes, everybody does not have to be the worst of the worst in terms of circumstances. You can still validate your feelings and allow yourself to have them rather than shame them, because shaming them is dragging that shoe along. It's not. It starts to deny there's even a shoe, so it's not helpful to do that. You're not going to spend a lifetime there, and I think that's a lot of the fear looking at grief. people think I'm going to get stuck there for the rest of my life. We get really, really extra about going towards grief. Like, I'll never stop crying, or I'm just going to wail for the rest of my life if I go there, that kind of thing. Not really. Actually, it's more cleansing to do that, to our bodies naturally water. It's there. And I encourage acknowledging whatever you're feeling in whatever circumstance life has you. It's okay to be just because there's material gain and you may have the things you want, that doesn't mean that the emotions of sadness don't exist. I like to think of emotions like the weather. Just sometimes there's bright sunny day and sometimes there's overcast. Sometimes a tsunami or an earthquake. None of it lasts forever, but just we wouldn't shame weather. So how about those weather patterns that live in us, just accepting them as they come? It's raining today. Okay, I'm going to need an umbrella and some boots, and rather than it shouldn't be, just allow it to be, because it allows it to pass and move on.
Right, right. Now, I really love that you mentioned compassion, that by allowing ourselves to feel our own grief, that does help us to become more compassionate and kinder to one another. Because I think that I read once that children who are protected from ever being hurt, if they've got helicopter parents who they don't ever let them get a boo-boo, they never learn what it's like to be in pain or to hurt themselves. So therefore, they feel no compassion for other people who have hurt themselves. So let's talk about grief in that way, where it can actually help you become a more well-rounded human being.
It really can. It really can. So if someone slows down and says, I think of those everyday conversations. How are you feeling? I'm good. I'm fine. I'm okay. And sometimes you're anything but. I think of an example of myself. It sounds crazy, but it's so true. It was a really heavy storm, when there was some sleet, and it was just an awful day in New York City. And I had this big umbrella, and I'm wearing my Brooks Brother blue suit and carrying my bag. And I came through the revolving door at the Penn Station, and the wind just caught the umbrella and I slipped. This was just the craziest experience. I had this umbrella, it's flying back and forth with the wind. I slipped and I began to fall down the escalator. I had an umbrella in my hand, an attaché case. I'm falling down a very long escalator in New York City, and I was yelling, "I'm okay," the whole time I'm falling. I'm in the midst of the fall, which is crazy. But I remember as I landed, still holding the umbrella, amazingly enough, but my shoe comes rolling down as someone's trying to help me, and I'm telling them I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm anything but okay. I'm hurt. I was bleeding. But there's this, we are committed to acting as if we're okay, even when we're obviously not. And you're so right about those children with the hovering parents who don't know pain. They have no concept of what pain is. So when someone else shows up hurt, they don't know what to do with that. Shake it off. It didn't happen. They cannot relate to it. Just like with feelings, I believe if we realize I'm not okay. I'm not okay. Right now, I'm not okay. I'm in pain. I'm falling down the escalator. I'm hurting, whatever it is. If we acknowledge that to ourselves and don't find shame around letting others know, healing actually happens by being witnessed. It does not happen in isolation. So many people want to get it together so that they can come out. I want to work this out in private so that I can be presentable here.
Mhm.
And I suggest just the opposite. Let people see reality. Parents who say, I don't let my children see me upset or cry. Well, do they get to see the sun, only the sunshine, or do they get to see uh, some clouds sometime?
Mhm.
I think it's very normal to experience the weather patterns that live within us. And by doing so, I think when we see someone else who's experiencing some weather, some emotion, that we are more understanding, more compassionate. We know how to give them time. And it's not rush through this. It's take the time, just like we need the time. That reminds me of that Dagara tribe in the grief ritual that they offer. There's one question that is asked, and I think it's so beautiful. When someone is grieving, there's always a witness there, someone just there holding space. And when the grieving person seems to be complete, they ask, have you grieved enough? There's something about that question that I think is just so beautiful because it's not rushing you along. It's like, look, you've had 2 days of this, enough already. It's not that. It's, have you grieved enough? And once you do, there's room for so much more,
Mhm.
so much more. There's a relief. There's weight that we don't even know we're carrying that's there. I, there's a quote about grief. It's that it's love with nowhere to go. And there's something very loving and soothing about that understanding of what it is.
Hmm. I love that. That's a great expression. I'm going to put that in my brain and remember that one. Thank you. While you were talking though about the falling down the stairs and insisting that I'm okay, it occurs to me that first of all, because I've had similar kinds of things, if you pretend to yourself you're okay, you're going to spend the rest of your life reliving that, like, oh my God, instead of just allowing the thing to happen. And also by insisting that you're okay, you're also denying the compassionate bystanders who really would love to help.
Yeah.
You're denying them the opportunity to show compassion to you and to actually create a remarkable, loving moment in the sight of something that really is not very pleasant.
It's
So,
not present, and they get to show their humanity. They're denied that, because I'm fine. As I limp away with one shoe. Like, but yes, it's the ego. It's the uh, our ego is bruised, and we really it's embarrassing. But people fall, trees fall, it happens, and someone gets to come to our aid if we would allow for it. And actually we'd feel better if we didn't power through and push through and man up or woman up or whatever it is, if we could just receive some help.
right, right. And allow yourself to have a human connection with another person who genuinely wants to connect.